We are at long last back here with Fornad, now on the ArdaCraft server, and together we're going to be taking a quick look through, well, I say quick, a fairly sizable look through a new recreation of the Shire, and he's going to be introducing us to his server. I guess what many of you will be wondering is what happened with MCME, the last server we were on. So why did you start this new recreation of Middle-earth?
So, yeah, it's good to be back, and it is an interesting question that you've just asked. The reason I moved away from MCME, along with many former members of that server, about a year ago now, maybe just over a year, is because we decided that MCME wasn't doing it well enough, wasn't recreating Middle-earth in the best possible manner, essentially. We felt that the resource pack they were using was too limited. We felt that the map they were using was too small. And me, personally at least, I felt that their lore accuracy was somewhat lacking, as in their fidelity to Tolkien's words and his books was not as good as it could be. So we took those concerns and we decided that the best way of dealing with them was to found a new server, essentially doing the same thing, but with those elements improved, essentially. So we created this server, which is called ArdaCraft.
Okay, cool, and I guess we'll be looking more at those things as we go along. So why don't we start with where we are right now? So where are we?
This is Bag End, of course. This is the home of the central protagonists of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, being Bilbo and Frodo Baggins. Yeah, so let's take a look around inside.
All right.
Sure to shut the door behind you, of course. Yep, so this is the front hall of Bag End. Obviously a very luxurious and large Hobbit hall compared to pretty much any other that you'll see. There's a few that are larger, but it's quite rare. Here's the main study, which is kind of one of the, I suppose, more famous rooms in Bag End. Is where Bilbo and Gandalf have a lot of talks together. It's where the whole scene with Gandalf sort of threatening Bilbo happened. You know, it's quite a famous place. Yeah. So, yeah.
So when is this kind of based then? Is this after Bilbo's come back, I assume? And
yeah, so this is set. This is set actually after this is set after Bilbo left the Shire when he went off to Rivendell, but it's set before Frodo left to sort of follow him. Now in the books, this is what most people don't realize. It's just a little lore tidbit. In the books, there was actually a fairly long gap. I think around about 18 years. It might be a bit shorter, but a very long time between Bilbo going off to Rivendell and Frodo leaving. And it's actually interesting because in the movie, you see how Bilbo's aged so much when you see him in Rivendell, but you don't quite realize how long it's been. So yeah, this is the main bedroom, if you hadn't realized. And I guess we'll go on down through Bag End's garden to Hobbiton from here.
very nice.
Yeah, so the garden again is one of these things which we pay a lot of attention to. This little patch here was specifically mentioned by Tolkien to have, you know, red and yellow flowers, sunflowers and stuff in it. So again, that's something we've taken. And the garden itself is fairly large. Obviously, it's, you know, was farmed or was gardened by Samwise Gamgee. So we tried to make it as kind of shall we say, lavish as possible.
Yeah, and I noticed already that there's like a huge variety of different flowers and blocks out here. Is that, are you using a mod to do that, or?
Yeah, so we are using a mod. I was just going to mention this here. This is the party tree. The tree in which Bilbo had his 111th birthday under. So quite the famous tree. And obviously the whole layout of Hobbiton here is quite different to the way it is in the movies. I think in the movies the party tree is all the way down by the water, which obviously it wasn't in the books. And that's obviously something which I think is worth emphasizing. We try to follow the books as much as we possibly can. And if the movies, you know, we do take visual inspiration from the movies, there is that element. But if the books contradict the movies in any way, we will follow them. I think in many ways it gives us more freedom.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you have words on a page and you can interpret those in multiple different ways. Whereas if you have like a visual depiction, then, you know, you have less freedom. Yeah. So let's go down into Hobbiton. We have the old mill on our left. Yeah. So your question: do we use the blocks mod? We absolutely do. I feel that vanilla Minecraft as it is, does not offer the kind of possibilities that a modded client does. If you look back at the back at Hobbiton, not Hobbiton, at Bag End from here, it's very nice indeed. So yeah, I don't think that vanilla Minecraft as it is really offers enough possibilities for a creative server like this. Mm-hmm. It's designed for the survival game. It isn't really appropriate for creating a world as large and as diverse as this. So we were essentially forced to use a mod pack, and it is very easy to use. It is very easy to install, but it is required to join. So anyone willing to join and help out would have to install that first.
Okay. And where are we headed now?
Yep, so we just left Hobbiton, and this is Bywater Lane. Quite famous. This is actually the site or the location of the last battle in the War of the Ring, in which essentially a bunch of thugs in the employ of Saruman were beaten up, and some of them were killed by the hobbits. This on our left, by the way, is the Ivy Bush. It's a small inn on the road, kind of built into the side of the bank. Quite nice design. So yeah, it's a kind of cool little road, and we are heading now towards Bywater, which is one of the more famous villages in the Shire. It's actually the first project we ever completed on this server.
Okay, and I'm guessing so that you include all the sort of unique buildings mentioned in the books, but how do you go about recreating areas that are less clearly kind of talked about in the books?
So essentially, we have to use our imagination in a lot of ways. Talking about significant buildings, by the way, this is the Green Dragon, of course, one of the most famous inns in the Shire, if not the most. So yeah, we have to use our own imagination, and we do take a lot of contextual stuff. So like, you know, even the names of villages often have kind of clues within them. You know, there's a village, for example, which is called Scary, which sounds a bit ridiculous in modern English, but it actually stems from the idea of there being, I think Scary is related to the Old English scar, which means sort of cliff. So we took that to mean it's very rocky around there. We know that there's a quarry mentioned near Scary, so we took that. And from that, we made a village which in the Shire, which is very kind of uses a lot of rock and slate in its construction. So you know, we do have to take a lot of contextual stuff rather than direct description.
But then it sounds like you try and give each area kind of its own unique flavour, I guess. And is that something you try and, I don't know, strive for to make each area unique and kind of interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we try to essentially, even within the Shire, which is quite a small area really compared to the whole of Middle-earth. So even within the Shire, we try to make every small little region, or farthing as it's called, try to make them feel unique. We try to look at the surrounding landscape and decide, what materials do they have to construct their buildings? What would, a group of people living here, how would they construct their buildings?
And so is this Bywater that we just walked through then?
Yeah, so that's Bywater. We just passed out through Bywater, and we are now on the Great East Road. We won't be following this today, but just to mention it for a moment, this is probably one of the most significant roads in Middle-earth. It runs all the way to the west, to the Blue Mountains, and it runs all the way to the east, across Eriador, sort of past Rivendell, over the Misty Mountains, and all the way into Mirkwood. So eventually this will be one of the longest roads on the server. So we will turn off it now, though, and go down the south lane towards Farmer Cotton's house. This is kind of like a large farmhouse just south of Bywater. And this is actually where Rosie Cotton lived, and Rosie Cotton became Sam's wife after the War of the Ring. So I think we'll just, let's keep going through here, actually. Sorry about that. And I think I'm just trying to remember how to get back here, because I haven't been back here in a while. Yes, there we go. So if we just go through here, this will take us into a little forest, and we're going to go out into more of a kind of wild area of the Shire to show you some of the forests and hills and stuff we've got going, as well as the fields.
And compared to the server we were last on, the countryside looks far more densely populated here, and there's a lot going on in terms of shrubbery and variation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that is important to us. So one of the kind of things we take into account when it comes to terrain, amongst many things that are important to us with terrain, is that really the founding principle is you should, wherever you walk, you know, in the Shire or wherever it is in Middle Earth, you should feel like there is something to see everywhere. You know, you don't want to turn off the road and go like a few hundred blocks and there is just nothing. There's just like grass. You know, you don't want that.
I guess with the greater scale, that becomes more of a challenge, and you have to.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. But luckily, with the tools we have at hand, World Painter, for example, I'm able to kind of use those tools and turn them into a much, you know, turn the terrain itself into a much more sort of interesting experience for any player. I mean, obviously, a lot of it has to be done by hand. A lot of what we are seeing now was done by hand, but you know, it's essentially, you know, it's a kind of a combination of both elements or both tools. So something we're coming up. Sorry,
go for it.
Oh, something we're coming up on now. Actually, this little area. This is like it's a cool detail, and just kind of an example of the detail we like to use on this server. This is an area of woodland that was cut and burned by local woodsmen. And so you can see the broken and sort of burned logs here. It's another mod block we use. And you can see this plant that's growing up, this kind of orange plant. That's called fireweed, and it's a real life plant, which grows often in kind of disturbed or burnt ground. So it's you know, that's just a good example of kind of the research that goes into our terrain. My co-admin actually is a geologist. He's a professional geologist, and so he has a lot to say and a lot of advice to give when it comes to making our terrain as realistic as possible.
And I guess then you also need to look at, so you said that area was burnt down. Why is that part of? Do they use that as cultivation, as part of their like cultivation techniques, or?
Yeah, so it's essentially to let new growths spring through. It's essentially a certain technique
to fertilize the land and
So it's used to kind of keep the forest from becoming too thick and tangled. Another cool example here. This is a little dried out stream bed. You can see here the block we used. So that's quite cool. So yeah, and then in the distance you can also see birch trees growing. We used a certain type of block to make the trunks a lot thinner, because obviously in real life birch trees have very thin, sort of elegant trunks. So that's a cool thing to notice as well.
This area looks quite different from where we started in Hobbiton. It's a lot kind of flatter and more wooded. Is there a reason? Where have we gone? Really, have we gone?
So yeah, we've gone south of Hobbiton, and we are now going into an area called the Green Hill Country. That's to our right. And we are now heading into an area called Woody End, which is essentially a kind of one of the more forested parts of the Shire, one of the wilder parts of the Shire. And we're actually walking along a road which was taken by the hobbits when they were leaving the Shire. So, oh yeah, this is a cool little place, actually. It doesn't look like much, but if you look at the rock here, if you look up here, this is red sandstone. So this is like a big layer of red sandstone in the rock. And then further down, you'll see this grey stuff, and this is slate. So this is, you know, part of the advice from the geologist we have. He said, you know, red sandstone and slate often appear together in layers, and so we decided to replicate that for our terrain. So, you know, we go into so much detail that even the rock layers are paid attention to, and even that is important. It's not just all one type of stone as it is in normal Minecraft these days.
And I guess you have to do similar things when considering what you're going to build in towns and villages. So how do you consider what buildings a village needs to have and go about designing the whole kind of structure of a village? Yeah, so when we sort of start planning a village, one of the primary things we look into is, as I said before, we use the surrounding areas and look at, you know, well, what would people in this village be doing? You know, so if it's a village in a forest, for example, you'd have gatherers, you'd have huntsmen, you'd have woodsmen, you know, you'd have all that sort of stuff. But if it was a village, for example, near a quarry, you know, you'd have obviously, you know, quarrymen, you'd have miners, you'd have all that sort of, you'd also have masons, people to shape the stone. So yeah, that's important. Another detail here, actually, this is directly from the books. This is the little tree which the hobbits hid behind. So if we sort of come behind here, you can see this is where they hid. Oh yeah.
Cool little area. Yeah. So that's a good example of what we do. We like to take our profession. You know, we like to make everyone have a profession. Now, obviously, in the Shire, it's mostly farmers, and in fact, that holds true across pretty much all of Middle Earth. Most people are going to be, you know, creating, you know, engaged in the process of making food, because that's what most people did in the medieval era.
Yeah.
But there are professions beyond that. Yeah.
So I guess that specialization leads to kind of regional differences. Was there much trade then in between different villages in the Shire, or?
Yeah, so pretty much every village will have a market, and there's kind of a rough economy that we've got set out for the Shire. Different areas will trade with one another. You'll see products from the South Farthing cropping up all over the place. For example, a lot of wine and tobacco is grown in the South Farthing, and so you'll see that being sold. We have regional beers and ales, even some of which Tolkien mentioned, some of which we've made up ourselves, and so that's also kind of, you can see that across the Shire as well. This is the woody end, by the way. This is the real forest we're getting into now.
Okay. So what kind of goals are you striving towards then with ArdaCraft? What are your ideals?
Well, yeah, I mean, hopefully from what I've been saying, let's just turn off the road here, actually. Let's head off into the trees. We are kind of sort of following the Hobbit's path, kind of. So hopefully from what I've said, you can kind of begin to understand what our main goals are. Obviously we want to make stuff look pretty, and we want us to make stuff look good. And that's obviously the goal of every creative server. But we also want to kind of make things realistic. We want things to make sense. We want, essentially, what I always say to the builders is, you want to imagine that if this place was real, if this got transposed into the real world, that people could live and work and have full lives essentially within this world. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it seem as if this world could function as a real thing rather than just being sort of artificially created. And this is the Elven camp, by the way.
Okay.
This is cool. This is like, basically, for people who don't know the books, this is where Frodo and the other hobbits, they were found by some elves, and the elves took them up into the hills around here, and they built sort of little campfire, and it's one of my favorite areas in the Shire. Actually, it's a nice little look. If you look south, actually, it's a really nice view of the trees from here. But yeah, so as I was saying, realism, like to us, is very important, and a feeling that it could really exist. And that's kind of, I don't know, for people who've read the books, they'll probably understand. But when you read Tolkien's works, you do kind of get a sense that it could be real, and that there is a kind of historical basis in all of it. And so that's what we're trying to do with it, essentially. So let's make our way down this slope here and towards the river.
With these secluded areas, do you have ways that people can find them, or do you more encourage people just to explore and to find these little things for themselves?
Yeah, I don't think we have any particular ways of encouraging people to go and look at stuff. I mean,
it's just
it's an open map,
curiosity.
Right? And that's kind of the beauty of it. It means that you can walk in any direction from when you spawn at Bag End. You can walk in any direction you want to go in. You can see anything you want, essentially, and you will always find stuff. That's well, I mean, obviously, at the moment, we are still working on it, but that is the eventual goal, and we are continually striving towards that point. So let's just this is a little bit more of Woody End, but let's cut across now, head directly east over the Marish, which is a sort of very flat, marshy area. See another custom plant you can see here. These are these tall plants here. These are rushes. I think the Juncus genus, I believe. We also have obviously lily pads. That's a vanilla thing, but we have multiple different plants that we use. Reeds as well.
And a lot of the plants seem to be animated. Is that, or they seem to you have animations for a lot of the plants? Is that something you do with a lot of the server to make it seem more alive?
Yeah, so well, that's not us personally. Actually, I mean, the resource pack we're using the resource pack we based our mod pack on is called Conquest, made by a guy called Monsterfish. It's a very, very popular resource pack indeed. It's used by a lot of servers, used by a lot of people in their single player even, because it is so lovely looking. And we took that. It uses a lot of connected textures. It uses a lot of cool little tricks to make the base game seem a lot more immersive and realistic looking, and we took that and essentially used it for Middle Earth. So we have made our own textures which fit Middle Earth itself. This is Farmer Maggot's farmhouse, by the way. There's cool little carts here, for example.
Yeah, no, really cool.
So yeah, that's that, and then we're now heading out into the kind of more civilized part of the Marish, shall we say. This is where the For example, you have a causeway here. This is like a raised bit of road used for flooding. Just to the east of us, actually, is the Brandywine River, and that will occasionally flood. So this makes the area very fertile, but it also makes it, interesting to live in, shall we say. So let's just continue on through and head towards the Brandywine itself. So this, over here, where I'm standing, this is the road to Bucklebury Ferry, said to be lined with white stones in the law, which is what we've recreated here. And eventually we'll come to the Brandywine. And I think from then on in, we might actually start flying from here, because from this point onwards, there are multiple completed projects, but there's also quite a lot of stuff that isn't done. So what I think we'll do is we will start flying from here, and we'll head towards kind of a few things that are done, and just also to kind of show you what stuff looks like when it is in progress. I think that's an interesting thing to look at as well. So let's take off. Now this area over here, over the Brandywine, this is Buckland. So it's an area outside of the Shire, but still inhabited by hobbits. Still kind of having the feel of, very much the feel of any normal hobbits, or a normal area in the Shire. The only thing which distinguishes it kind of from the rest of the Shire is, well, the Bucklanders in general had a reputation for being a bit strange, a bit kind of foreign to the rest of the Shire. For example, a good example is they have another floor. So pretty much any hobbit house you come across will have one single floor, be bungalows essentially. But here they have multiple floors. This is a village in progress. It's called Brereton, right on the edge of the old forest. And yeah, so this is kind of, like I said, it's the whole regional variation thing is very important. So again, this is one of the strange things which distinguishes Buckland from the rest of the Shire, is the second floor thing. So yeah, and this is the edge here of the old forest. Now this is a project which has just started only a week ago, and it's a very, very large forest, the biggest one we've done yet. And this whole area is very much a work in progress. So we have, this green wall marks the edge of the forest itself. There's also going to be a very large and tall hedge called the High Hay, a bit of which has been done, you can see here. And all of this is kind of, as I said, a work in progress. But it is cool to see kind of how we make our forests and how we do things.
So how do you kind of go about creating these large forests then?
So essentially, we have, I think I might have lost you. Where have you gone?
Oh.
You are somewhere. Hang on. I don't see. I'll
right
TP to you, hang on.
No. I'm like right next. Okay.
Okay, cool. So let's go into here. So how we do this for these forests is fairly simple. Essentially what we have is a plugin which allows us to copy and paste trees on a wide scale. So I think I'll show you later on in the video, but we have a very large area of trees which we've made, and essentially we can copy and paste those into forests themselves. So we've made about 300 to 400 trees. We intend on making more, but it allows us essentially to make every single tree kind of a custom looking tree, a custom built tree, without having to actually build every single one of them. So that it's kind of a nice balance between quality and time actually spent making stuff, because obviously we could never, in a forest that is like 1,000 blocks across, we could never make it, we could never build everything ourselves.
So is it that you kind of use World Painter and plugins to do these larger scale projects, and then when you get into the nitty-gritty of towns, you more do it by hand, or?
Essentially, yeah. So for this section, actually, I didn't put any trees on the map. So every single tree you see on this current part has had to be copy pasted in. But the way we work essentially is I have a big World Painter map. I export sections of it at a time. We then work on those, finish those, and then we add on a new section. So for this one, I didn't add in any trees because the trees weren't ready. So we've had to do this all. We have to paste all of these trays in. But for the next section, I'll be making forests using World Painter. But at the moment, we're just using that plugin.
And then what sort of roles do other people take in the project? How is it organised?
So the way the project's organised is fairly simple. We want to try to keep kind of the whole rank thing to a minimum. So to begin with, when you first join the server, you'll be a guest. You can't build, obviously. You can chat and you can walk around and stuff, but you can't actually contribute. in order to contribute, you have to apply on the forums of the builder. So everyone has to do that, regardless of their building skill. Everyone has to do it. Even my co-admin had to do it. So try and make things as fair as possible in that sense, I suppose. And then after that, after you've applied for and completed your first project on the server, I will usually give you a rank called Builder Plus, which means that you can use Weldon and Voxel, because obviously I don't want to give those very powerful tools to people that I don't really know. So it's a kind of a process of getting to know people, getting trust with people, just getting to know the community, which is obviously a big part of this project. You can't run such a massive project without having a strong sense of community and knowing people and having a lot of fun together while you're doing it. So yeah, this is the edge of the Old Forest, or will be actually, and this leads up into the Barrow Downs and Tom Bombadil's house, which is something we have actually completed. It's quite cool. Yeah, so Tom Bombadil, if anyone doesn't know him, he's a very enigmatic, strange character. He lives in this little house at the edge of the Old Forest. He doesn't leave his kind of domain as he sees it, which is the Old Forest of the Barrow Downs. And he just lives here with his elven wife, and no one really knows who he is. Some people have said he's God, some people have said he is the embodiment of Middle-earth itself, but no one really knows. Tolkien never said. So he's one of these mysteries in the world. So I think what we'll do from now, actually, is since we are going to be walking through, we would be walking through a lot of terrain that's not done at all. I think we'll start sort of warping through, move kind of, teleporting from place to place, just because it's a lot easier. So if I do, I'm going to teleport us to the sort of center of the Barrow Downs, or the kind of the heart of them. So let's just teleport. Yeah, so this is the Great Barrow. For those who don't know, the Barrow Downs are kind of an area of essentially burial mounds built on top of large hills between Bree and the Shire. And these were built for the, I don't know how dark this is going to be in here, but these were built for the Arnorian kings and princes, an ancient civilization that fell kind of thousands of years before The Lord of the Rings begins. And they are now cursed and haunted, essentially, by wights or ghosts. So, yeah, it's kind of a very creepy area. And it was very fun to build, actually. We are still in the process of building them, but it was very fun to kind of create this kind of old tombs. It's a very different kind of thing to be building compared to the Shire, for example. So, yeah.
And
fun.
So far you've mainly done, I guess, the Shire, then haven't really done this sort of stuff nearly as much.
Yeah, so we've been focusing on the Shire, obviously, for the better part of a year. But we have been doing other stuff. So, for example, we've been doing the Barrow Downs. We've just started the Old Forest, and something else we've done, which is now complete, actually, is the village of Bree, which is obviously the home of the Prancing. I think what we'll do is we'll walk to that now, just to kind of move through a bit quicker. So this is the west gate of Bree. Bree is obviously surrounded by these kind of large farmlands, which were built, kind of the first thing we built actually were these large farmlands. So if you actually fly up and just take a look at the sheer scale of these, it's kind of mad. So we have these very large wheat fields. We also have pastures, turnip fields, and I think on the southern side we also have a small field of pipeweed, which was specifically mentioned by Tolkien. So yeah, huge fields that you can't actually render in all at once, I don't think, which is quite fun. So let's head back to the west gate and kind of take a look at Bree. And Bree is, at the moment, the largest settlement we have on the server. It took us about 4 months to complete. A lot of work, but definitely worth it at the end of it. So it was a project that a lot of people were very excited about because it is such a significant location in the lore.
So, how many buildings would you say you have in Bree, then?
I remember counting it. It was around about 80. Tolkien said there were 100, but obviously due to scale considerations, we had to make it a little bit smaller. But yeah, this is a fairly accurate representation of, I think, what Bree would have been like. It's accurate to the lore in all aspects. But obviously, again, Tolkien doesn't provide exact maps of every place he describes. He doesn't, tell you about every house and every person in the village. So we have to do a lot of kind of, research and use a lot of creativity ourselves. This is the Prancing Pony, by the way, the most famous inn in Middle Earth, probably, at least to people who've read the books. This is where the hobbits meet Aragorn. So we go into here and take a look at the front room. This is kind of the area where they were when they went into to begin with. And they saw Aragorn first sitting in this corner here, so I had to sit here, looking dark and mysterious, as he did. So this is kind of a very significant location. And has a lot of rooms, actually. I mean, I'm not going to explore all of them, that would take far too long, but I would say there's at least about 30 or 40 rooms in this big inn, so it's quite fun.
Yeah.
This is the parlour where they spent the night. Quite cosy. So yeah, I think what we'll do now is we'll just walk down the main street of Bree. Obviously, Bree is one of these locations that you could spend, at least an hour exploring and looking around, but as much as I would love to do that, we can't do it at the moment. So let's just take a walk down the main street and head off.
Appreciate it. Okay. So what's next after you complete this map section, I guess?
So yeah, after we complete this this map section, which is, as I've been saying, the Shire and the area around Bree, we will be moving west, actually, and we'll be moving to an area which not a lot of people know very much about, even those who have avidly read the books. It's an area called Lindon, which is an elven kingdom, kind of the last real large elven realm left in Middle-earth at this point. I mean, obviously there's Lorien and there's Mirkwood, but Lindon is kind of this very significant location in the lore. It's the last remnant of Beleriand, which is an area which existed, thousands of years ago in the First Age. So for anyone who's read the Silmarillion, which is kind of the history of Middle-earth and the history of everything going back to the creation of the world, anyone who's read that should be very excited about what we're doing next. And it's something that has never really been done in Minecraft before, so it's going to be a very interesting challenge. There's been multiple recreations of the Shire and of Hobbiton and stuff, and even of Bree, but never really of stuff in Lindon, like the Grey Havens, for example. That's probably the only location people will know. The Grey Havens, that's where Frodo goes off at the end and sails off into the west. So that's what we'll be doing. That'll be a very large city, but there's also going to be smaller elven cities. There's also going to be some very cool dwarven halls and ruins and stuff. So there's going to be all kinds of cool stuff to do in Lindon that I'm really looking forward to. And that map section should be coming out in the next few months. Can't set a release date on it yet because I'm still working on it, but that is the plan. So yeah, but talking about that and talking about trees, actually, as we were saying earlier, I think it might be cool to show something which I consider the engine room of the server, and kind of gives a good idea of the sheer scale that we're working at. If the video has not already shown the scale we're working at, this hopefully should. So let me teleport you to this this massive thing we have, which is the tree grid. So yeah, this doesn't appear in the books. This is basically just a storage area, a kind of holding tank for all the trees we've built so far. And these are all going to be used on the map eventually. These are all going to be incorporated into forests. So we have small trees at the bottom, we have medium trees, we have large trees, we have trees for use in forests, and each of the kind of rows is essentially a different type of a different species. So we have stuff like just flying around yews, we have junipers, we have elms, obviously oaks, that's a big one, alders, pretty much any major European tree species you can think of, we have built. And this is all part of the whole realism thing we go into.
Yeah, no, this place is crazy. How many people would you say you have working on this then?
What, on the tree grid? Or
on the tree grid? Well, yeah, generally, and then, yeah, specifically with stuff like this.
So, really, we have about 30 active builders. It doesn't sound like much, but, these people are fairly dedicated. So we have around 30, maybe even 40 at most. And in terms of the tree grid, you know, not everyone likes building trees, believe it or not. So we have maybe about 10 players who actively build trees on a regular basis. And yeah, it's very important. I mean, I'm going to be using all of these trees in world painting when I create the kind of forests of Middle Earth. And so, you know, it's important to us to get that part of it in, I suppose. I mean, there are other tree grids or similar things that people have done, but none of them really meet the kind of criteria that we're looking for. So we, like many things, we've had to do it ourselves. But I'm fairly happy with the results, actually. So yeah, I think we've probably given a good overview of what we're doing here. There's also some other stuff around here. There's terrain examples. There is examples of how to build interiors for new builders, that kind of stuff. It's kind of just like I said, a holding tank, a nice little area for reference. So yeah, I think what we'll do is, I think now we've seen everything we need to see. Let's move on to the end of the video and kind of one of the more recent projects we've been working on. So let me just teleport you to Michel Delving, which is the capital of the Shire. So find a nice place to TP you guys to. There we go. So this is Michel Delving. It's the largest village in the Shire. We wouldn't even call it a village, it's more of a town, really. And it's something we've been building quite recently and should be finishing quite soon as well. It's located in the White Downs on the western end of the Shire. It's where the mayor lives, it's where the head of the post lives, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is quite a cool area. And yeah, it's like I said, it's taken a long time to build. It's probably like I said, it is the largest village, and I don't know if it's been the longest time taken because the leader of it is so dedicated. But it's quite the extensive place, and actually it leads all the way up to this place called the Matham House on the very western end of town, which is where hobbits kind of store their little odds and ends, the things that they don't really need but find curious or interesting. For example, Bilbo's mail shirts, which, you know, the mithril shirt that he gave to Frodo. That was actually stored there for many years, and kind of put on display for hobbits to go and look at. I'm sure they didn't really understand what it was, but
and the architecture here is quite kind of different from the other places we've been before. It's got that single story thing you're talking about. It's much less integrated into the landscape, I guess. Is that kind of characteristic of this area, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly using a lot of sort of red tile and yellow. It's using a different type of kind of walls that we have. The kind of half-timbered walls. It's a different type of them, and yeah, it's just got its own little feel, its own style, which, like I said, is part of the whole thing. This is very not done, by the way. Yeah. This is the Matham House. So yeah. I hope that this has given anyone watching a kind of good idea of what ArdaCraft is all about. And hopefully, if you're interested in this, if you like Tolkien, if you like massive creative projects in Minecraft, I hope that some of you will come to take a look.
Well, thanks a lot for the tour, and everyone watching, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you sometime again soon.
All right. See you guys later.